And also for you guys. Yan. So again, ganun pa rin. Meron akong additional screen here that I'm using for my lectures. Ba't ang dami natin ngayon? 50 kayo guys. Naloloka naman ako. Paano tayo pag nag-laboratory? Lagot na tayo. Anyways. Okay. Wait lang ah. Let me just share my screen for you guys. Ni-share ko lang yung screen ko for the recording, pero hindi ko pa ni-share para sa klase. Okay, wait lang. Wait lang. Yan. Okay. So you can see can you see my screen now? Not yet. Okay. Ah, that's good. That's good. That's good. Actually. Okay. So this time we're gonna be, oh, shoot, ba't ito? Wait lang. Bakit yan? Hindi yan. Hindi yan ang ano nyo. Ito. Show this. Show this. Yan. Okay. So for today, we're actually gonna go back, refresh your mind with regards to science. So science, according to Oxford Languages, it's actually a systematically organized body of knowledge of a particular subject matter. Okay, now it's actually derived from the Latin word scientia, okay, which means knowledge. Now, so when you say knowledge, kaalaman, is it something that you just hear from one person or from one source? Ito ba isang bagay na minamarites niyo na lang at naging kaalaman because of the marites system? Yes or no? Winchor, itong knowledge ba nito ay pwedeng i-marites o hindi? Ha? Hindi po. How about Rika May? I-marites na lang natin 'to, i-maricon na lang natin? Okay, so definitely it's not something that we can do marites on it. So it's actually something that you acquire. So this definition that you're looking at right now is based on the apprenticeship in gaining of the knowledge. Usually, for a person to become a skilled without the formal education that are using right now, people back then, hundreds of years ago, get this knowledge by becoming apprentice of a certain skilled person. For example, if you want to learn about woodworking, furniture making, you have to be trained by a furniture maker. Ngayon, iba na siya, di ba? You can actually design the furniture on your computer and then you can plot it. But before you could be able to become a skilled worker, you have to undergo training. An example also of this kind of gaining of the knowledge, yung knighthood. Alam niyo yung mga knights of the round table, yung mga Arthurian legends, yan. Before ka maging considered as a knight in the shining armor, yan, you have to be a squire. Okay? So as a squire, you have to be trained by a knight. So pagsusunod-sunod kayo sa mga knights yan. Kaya if you watch yung mga palabas na Game of Thrones, 'di ba minsan may mga knights na may kasamang batang lalaki, yun yung mga nagti-training. Okay? Now, this is actually based on Oxford again dictionary. Now, the knowledge that we have are actually classified further. You have theoretical, which is through intellectual and thinking, and the other one is practical. So, yung sinasabi ko kanina, it's more on experience and performing task. And that's a practical knowledge. Then we also have what we call the scientific knowledge. Okay? Now, guys, sabihin nyo lang kung medyo mabilis ako magsalita. Mabilis talaga ako magsalita. Ngayon pa lang sinasabi ko sa inyo. I really talk fast. So, if in case I a bit too fast for your uh, preference, sabihin nyo lang, Ma'am, break, stop. Okay? Pwede man tayo magdahan-dahan. Okay? So, yan. Okay, so okay pa naman so far, guys? Kaya pa naman, no? Thank you, Rainier. Okay. Now, when you say scientific knowledge, this is, according to Aristotle, it's a body of reliable knowledge that can be logically and rationally explained. Okay? So, yun yung importante. It has to be logically and rationally explained. If it's something that is not logical, like yung mga supernatural thingies, it's not going to be considered as a scientific knowledge. Okay? Now, For those under the scientific knowledge, it's further classified into pure science and applied science. So yung mga nalalaman natin, like the one that we're talking about right now, chemistry, biochemistry, your physical science, your mathematics, these are actually your pure science. But the moment you apply this into certain situations, we call that already applied science, or we also know that as technology. Okay? Now, how do we add scientific knowledge? Ano ba yung paraan para madagdagan yung mga kaalaman, di ba? Anybody who has an idea when this information becomes a part of a scientific knowledge? Meron tayong proseso. Let's call Janie Lynn. Janie Lynn, wala si Janie Lynn. Hello, hello, Jenny Lynn, Jenny Lynn. Oh, nako, wala. Nako, may ayan. Ano yung paraan ng pagdadagdag ng scientific knowledge? Ngayon, marami ng scientific knowledge na dadagdagan on a daily basis. How do we add scientific knowledge? There's a process for that. Naku, wala. Nawala si Janie Lynn. May technical issue ba tayo? Okay. Okay, anong process yun, Iha? Mm. So, yung minention mo na yun. What is that? That is a part of it. And what do you call that whole process? I'm asking, what's the name? Ay, good job, good job. Nakuha pa ni Janie Lynn. Okay, girls, sorry na lang kayo. Nauna na si Janie Lynn. Binigyan natin siya ng pagkakataon sumagot. Yes, it is actually the scientific process or the scientific method allows you to add more information or add scientific knowledge. Now, let's go to the different parts. You mentioned already some of it, Janie Lynn. Okay, so let's go. So the first thing that usually being done when you undergo scientific when you process through the scientific method is observation. So you use your senses, kapa, 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 okay, pakiramdam, amoy, amoy, amoy kayo dyan. And then, if in case you found something that's out of the ordinary, you tend to record your observations. Okay? It's really important that you record it. It is usually the make or break of a scientific discovery. Okay? So, yeah. So, after you have done your observations, you saw something out of the ordinary. So, therefore, you're going to make inferences. Okay? So, what is inferences? Now, inferences is actually an explanation of your observation. Kumbaga, ano ka na, meron ka ng pangunang, ano ba Tagalog natin? Pangunang, parang, not exactly, it's not your hypothesis, pero yung probable reason of that happening. Okay? So, example of that one, una, may bubbles. Now, bakit may bubbles yung liquid? So, yun yung tanong ninyo. Okay? So, usually, it's either na yung iniinom kasi, kaya siya may bubbles kasi merong oxygen or merong mga gases na na-trap sa loob or puwede ring nagpakulo ka kaya nakakapag-produce siya ng gas sa loob, okay, or nagre-release siya ng gas from your material, okay? Another example of this one is broken window. Bakit nagkakaroon ng broken window? Hindi kasama broken puso niyo diyan ha, broken window lang tayo. Okay? So, yung broken window kasi may bumato do'n sa pintana, kaya nabasagan ka ng pintana. Yan. So, that's what you mean by inferences. Okay? So, you make an explanation. Okay? Although hindi mo pa natetest, pero yun yung magiging explanation doon sa observation mo. Now, after you've done that, you can actually go to identifying the problem. Okay? So, usually this is what you're gonna be working on. Okay, so usually you ask the questions that would help you come up with the situation that would lead to your situation. Okay, then afterwards you formulate your hypothesis. Okay, Now, hypothesis is actually an educated guess of what really happened, okay, based on your observation and basic research. Now, take note that it must be testable, okay? Now, you also, as a research, you also have what we call the null hypothesis and the alternate hypothesis. Ano bang pagkakaiba ng null at saka alternate? Now, I know you've already had your research back in senior high. Sige nga, let's ask Kim Borrelia. What is a null hypothesis? I mean, how do you remember a null hypothesis? Okay. So, kumbaga parang, okay. So, wala, wala, wala. So, this is more of a negative. Kumbaga, para madali nating tandaan, ito yung negative na hindi po nagkakaroon ng relasyon yung mga variables sa pinag-aaralan natin. Thank you, Kim. How about Cecile? What is alternate hypothesis? Cecile Marie. Ito, sorry naka ano kasi, naka-cut yung name ninyo dito sa screen. Yes. Good morning, Cecile. Okay. Okay. So, this is the one that shows, pwede natin i-relate doon sa sinabi kanina ni Kim that yes, it's a different output from what is expected. And usually there is a relationship. So, somebody's also raising their hands. I think, Irish, you want to say something? You want to add on to it? Mhm. Yes, that's correct. Perfect. Okay, thank you for clarifying that, adding that also further. How about Maria? Would you like to add on to it? Okay. Yan. Yes, that's correct. And thank you for clarifying and adding more information to that note. Okay, so malinaw tayo doon na sa hypothesis. So usually when we hypothesize, we create a null hypothesis wherein there is no relationship among the variables that are present in your research. And then the alternate hypothesis includes all the relationships that were found. Okay, yan yung test natin. Okay, yan yung tutunayan natin. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So experimentation. So this is the time that we're going to be working on the actual components or variables in your research, okay, or on your experiment, on your problem. Okay. Now, the components that you're going to be working on is called variables. Now, we have also what we call the independent, the controlled, and the dependent variable. So when you say independent, this is the one that's not going to change. The controlled variables are also the ones that are kept the same, and the dependent variable are the ones that can be measured. So if you go back to the screen earlier, here I have your picture showing a man or a woman. I guess this is a woman standing in front of three fertilizers. So, based on this one, well, let's create a null hypothesis. Okay? Yun nga lang, ang dami nating variables. Sorry naman guys, pinahirapan ko ang mundo nyo. Okay? So, based on the statement na lang na binigay natin, doon natin i-relate. So, if you're going to go for null hypothesis, um, the in terms of growth of plant and based on the performance of fertilizer, our null hypothesis would be like how that there is no difference in the growth of the plants that will be utilizing fertilizer A, diba? And if it's alternate, there is difference in the growth of the plants that are going to be using fertilizer A. Kasi ang target natin dito is that we're trying to find out if fertilizer A is better among the other options that we have here. Okay? So yan. So given that we have this already, the null hypothesis and the alternate for hypothesis, since we're working on variables, which one is the controlled variable? Okay? Ano ba yung mga nandiyan dyan? You have plants. You have fertilizer A, you have fertilizer B, fertilizer C. Tapos, you have also, syempre, since we're gonna be um, growing plants, so syempre, kailangan mo ng soil, right? Kailangan namang, ano tayo, hydroponics phonics ba yung tawag doon? Or, syempre, traditional tayo. So, we're gonna use a soil and therefore, we're also gonna need water in that regard. Okay? Now, alin doon ang mga ano natin, call this, ang ating, teka lang wait lang. Sandali guys Kailan to? Yes. Miss Lobos, ballpen ma'am. Yes, go ahead. Soil and water. And ano, di ba pala, nakalimutan ko i-mention, you also have sunlight, di ba? That's also one of the factors that are gonna be needed or one of the variables that are gonna be needed to plant, right? So I forgot to mention that. Sorry. So therefore, you can say is the sunlight controlled or dependent? Yes, thank you, Joy. How about um, Kahil? Would you like to add on? Hmm? Ah, ay, sorry naman, Season. Sorry. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Kahel, you would like to add more onto that one? Oh, Jarby. Jabi, sorry, Jabi. Okay. Okay. Yeah, thank you. And Brent, would you like to add on to that also as well? Temperature. Yes, actually, that is also the things that we can have. But based, since we're gonna be working on the types of fertilizers. Therefore, all of those that you mentioned earlier are going to be considered as controlled. Okay, so so just to make sure that everything will have the same amount. So yung dami ng tubig na ipapadilig natin sa mga halaman, dapat pare-pareho. Hindi pwedeng si A lang ang basang-basa ng tubig or maraming-maraming tubig na idinilig kaysa sa B and C para magkaroon ng kumbaga forced growth with a better growth on fertilizer A compared with B and C, di ba? So lahat yan dapat control. And therefore, your dependent variable would be on the fertilizers that we'll be using. Okay? So yan. Okay, now, here are other more explanation in terms of dependent and independent variables. So when you say independent, it is a variable that you are investigation. That's the one that you can physically control or manipulate to see the effect on another variable. And then the dependent is relying on the independent. So usually for that is the growth of the plant. Okay? So the independent natin is yung ating call this yung ating fertilizers. Then the growth, the height, yung quality ng pag-grow niya will be depending the dependent variables. Okay? So yan pa. Now, okay, so another definition for control is the one that is being compared with. This is ito yung basis natin. Now, since we're talking about control, guys, when we do the experiment later on in terms of carbohydrates, lipids, lagi tayong magkakaroon ng control. Okay? Para ito yung basis natin. Kung walang gantong reagent doon sa sample natin, ito yung makita natin. Okay? And then, saka ngayon tayo magko-compare and contrast. Okay, so if you will be um, for those who did the call to, the simulation, hindi na pinakita yung control, nag-actual na kagad sila kasi sa simulation. Pero this time, when we do have the actual, you're gonna be having a controlled test tube. Okay? Kaya pag naglaboratory tayo, kailangan paspasan po 'yan para hindi tayo natatagalan, hindi tayo natatambakan. Okay? Yan. Okay, so it's actually a way for us to make a parallel comparison of the output. Okay, so yan. Now, another thing to remember when we do the experiment is repetition and reliability. Okay? So, di ba naalala niyo yung kasabihan, di ba? Try and try until you what? Ano yung susunod na dapat na term doon? Try and try until you ano, succeed. Baka may sasabihin, ma'am, try and try until you die. Huwag ganon, ha? Try and try until you succeed. So, usually, repetition is a key when it comes to experiment. Now, normally, tatlo, kung nakita ka na ng pattern or you're able to see the same thing, pwede na sa tatlo. Minimum yon. Pero, if you're gonna do a study, sometimes hindi lang tatlo, sometimes hindi lang lima. Until you get the pattern. Okay? Or until you get a variable, a concrete effect of your study. Okay? Now, and then at the same time, saka ka ngayon, kung if yung it's gonna be more on something that is measurable, like amount of liquid produced, you calculate the average. Okay. Now, the reason why we do repetition so that anything that could have may have impact on the first few trials will be eliminated. So wala tayong magiging error. Paano ko yung unang pag-trial ninyo or pag-unang test ninyo, the test tube was not cleaned ahead of time. Alam niyo, tinanggap niyo lang yung chemical, may isang nilagyan ng alcohol, meron tayong idadagdag doon na organic that would have an impact on the alcohol. So definitely, it would have an effect on the result. Okay? Kaya nga importante when you go and when we go and start with our laboratory to make sure to clean your laboratory apparatus ahead of time. Okay? So yan po. Okay? And at the same time, it's also one of the essences to remember pagdating sa experiment, it is or any study or any information that's going to be available, it's something that can be repeated. Okay? Pag hindi mo na-repeat, ano yan, nag-hocus-pocus yan, nag-abracadabra sis pumba siya. Okay? So, hindi pwedeng ganon. So, kailangan, it's something that can be repeated. Okay? Kaya nga yung mga nag-experiment or yung mga nagkakaroon ng study, pag hindi nagawa yung isang studies, let's say, ginawa sa Philippines, tapos merong gustong mag-replicate ng study sa China, now, kahit na i-try niyang i-recreate yung temperature sa Philippines, hindi niya nakuha pa rin yung result. Then there's something wrong with the study. Okay? Baka nga abracadabra sis kumba siya. Okay? So, yan. Next is analyzing the data. So, now that we have already all the data available, we tend to analyze it. You can show it using a graph. Okay? Or pwedeng tabular siya. So sa atin, it's more on tabular. Most of the time, it's gonna be showing as a table. Then, pwede siyang numeric ang output. Pwede ring description. So, you have to have a good command of the language para at least you'll be able to express or describe your outputs properly. Okay? So, yan po. Okay, and then draw your conclusion. Para nagko-conclude din tayo. So, after all, you're gonna be including also the aim of your study, comment on the hypothesis. Usually, guys, if you're going to follow this full thing here, it's similar to the one that is being done on a research. Okay, so, if we're going to be creating a conclusion based on an actual experiment, so include mo kung ano yung ginamit natin. So, ano ba yung mga samples mo? I therefore conclude that proteins, tapos ang ginawa pala, nag-hit ka ng proteins, and ano nangyari doon. Okay? This will actually tell you a lot of ano yung ginamit mo, ano yung hypothesize mo, and then at what is the end result of your experiment. Okay? So, yan. So, if you're gonna go back to the one that we have earlier sa plant, so, explain mo yon na if you're gonna conclude it that the study is focused on to find out if fertilizer A will be able to produce a better result compared or better growth in terms of height. Ano ba nakikita natin? Number of leaves on plants compared to fertilizers B and C. Uh, and then after testing it for, let's say, one summer, we were able to conclude that the output of plant A that underwent treatment using fertilizer A was able to show a great amount of leaves formation, and at the same time a higher uh, or a greater length in terms of height, in terms of the growth of the plant. Okay? So yan po yung tatandaan natin when it comes to growing your conclusion. Okay? So yan. Now, wait lang guys. Wait lang. Yan. Now, sometimes these conclusions that we have, if it is something that is accepted and has been repeated all throughout, it can be, you can actually create a theory out of this. Okay? Now, if that theory is widely accepted, okay, it can now be called as a law. Okay. Now, can you cite me some examples of theories na hindi siya that we have right now? Marami yan, guys, 'di ba? Anyone? Example ng theory. Yes. Michael. Yes, loud and clear. Big Bang Theory, yan. Okay? So, 'di ba? If we're going to look at, 'di ba nakita, I guess you've seen also yung mga tawag nito, yung pictures ngayon ng latest sa ano to? Um, telescope right now, better than Hubble Space Telescope. Meron tayong latest ngayon, and somehow they were able to see better pictures of the ones that was shown, showcasing the farthest regions of the planet, di ba? Farthest regions of the outer space rather. Okay? So let's have naman uh, Christine. Self? Self theory. Cell theory. Yeah, si Robert Hooke. Tama? Okay. Now, why do you think that some of these series did not evolve into a law? Why is it? Bakit ba hindi sila nagiging law? Okay, anyone? So let's call Althea. Okay. Anyone who'd like to add on or would like to say otherwise? How about, o ba, nawala ni mga kamay. Maria Guada Faith, Anisete. Good morning. Okay, yes. Let's call, thank you. Ira, could you like to add on or to go against what she mentioned about why some theories did not develop into laws? Yes, I hear loud and clear. Okay. Um, Rika. Let's
For me po, yung theories po, proven na po siya, but yung law po kasi universally accepted fact na po siya. So, kaya po hindi nagiging, hindi pahataw yung theory, even though proven na siya, it's because hindi pa po siya universally accepted.
Okay. Thank you, actually. Thank you for all of your comments regarding the differences between theories and law. Yes, actually, all of are correct. There are some parameters that tend to limit theory into evolving into a law. Okay. Maybe if it was stated, alam mo yun, minsan kasi pag nagpe-present ng theory sila, marami silang sinasama sa theory. And there are cases that some of those components that were included in the theory are not easily supported or kulang sa support or hindi na siya natanggap. Okay, so usually yun yung nangyayari doon. So for example, let's have the atomic theory. Okay, so you have Dalton's atomic theory. Now, some of the components are correct. Alam naman na natin that matter is made up of atom. This has been proven and tested by uh, going back to Democritus and Aristotle, diba? However, it did not go to atomic law because of some of those postulates that were included in the theory that somehow hindered the further development of it to become as an accepted law. Okay, so that's why some of it is until now it's still a theory. Why? Because there are some situations that tend to it usually is canceled out or puwedeng ano, may mga na-develop kasi na mga study that tend to um, not support that idea, okay? Pero yung simple na lang, yung buoyancy, okay? Snell's law. So simple laws have been supported and has been proven and tested until now. Alam mo yung laws have been created for a long, long time, particularly scientific laws, and it has been proven, tested until now. Okay? So, yan yung tatandaan natin. Now, if in case some of those laws, the question now that I'd like to ask you rather is, can law be subjected back to theory? Is it a yes or a no? Can law be subjected back to law, to theory position? Winchor, yes or no? Yes? Okay, how about the others? Rika, can we say that law can become downgraded back to theory status?
Yes, I'm not really sure.
Yes, Rika.
I'm not really sure po, pero feeling ko when, although universally accepted po siya, yung science po kasi, it is constantly changing. So, baka po meron tayong ma-discover that will, contrast yung mga na-prove na po natin before. So, I think may possibility.
Yes, actually, that's correct. Always remember when you talk about science or anything in this world that we have around us, nothing is permanent, 'di ba? Boyfriend ngayon, asawa bukas, ex sa susunod, 'di ba? Yeah. Pero I mean, nothing is permanent. The only thing permanent is change. So if in case something happens that somehow this idea is no longer supported by the rest of the people, therefore it can be reverted back to theory. Then later on, pag talagang walang-wala na at may pwede siya ma-downgrade. Totoo yan, pwede siya ma-downgrade. For example, because of the idea that was widely accepted nung mga panahon ng 1700s, that the world was flat, 'di ba? Yung mga flat earth theory noon. Okay? Ang if you're going to go back to that original idea that the earth was flat and if you sail to the sun or to the horizon, you're gonna fall off from the planet, 'di ba? Pero ano nangyari? Dumating sina Copernicus, ay si Copernicus, not Copernicus, si Christopher Columbus pala. Okay? Then we have also our Magellan. Okay? Then you have also Villalobos, sino pa ba sa mga history natin. There are a lot of people who during that particular time when the theory of or the idea of the flat earth was widely accepted, when they were able to sail back coming from the opposite direction from where they sailed from, therefore they will say that it's not flat, the world is round. Okay. And then this was also further strengthened when we went outside the planet, yung nakakaroon tayo ng mga satellites. Yan, nakita natin na bilog talaga ang mundo. Okay? Yan. Okay. So any questions with regards to theory versus law concept? Kaya pa naman? Kaya? Okay, sige, kaya daw sabi ni Winchor. Kahit mahina. Okay. Now last one is traits of a scientist. Ano ba yung mga traits ng scientist? Okay? Na dapat nating tatandaan. Okay, sige. Kindly post on the in-call messages all the characteristics. Kahit isa lang. Everybody will try to type in characteristics of a scientist. Huwag naman pare-pareho ang sagot, ha? Sige. So, nakikita ko dito, patient, curious. Sorry ingay ko. Sorry, Mela. Okay lang ako. Open-minded. Yan. Good job. Creative. Yan. Actually, totoo guys. You have to be creative. Lalo na pag may mga situations na hindi mo magamit yung mga materials mo. You have to do something about it. Otherwise, mamamatay kayong mulat ang mata. Okay? So I see some of them skeptic. Yes, it's really important that scientists become skeptic. You do not accept things at face value. You have to find out. That's why you need to experiment. Bakit pag sinabi ba ni Marites na ganito, ito na yung katotohanan? Hindi. Mag-imbestiga ka. Totoo ba ang chismis? Yan. Okay? Kaya nga hindi tinatanggap ang chismis eh. Kaya nga 'di ba if you watch yung Attorney Woo, sino ba dito nanood ng Attorney Woo? May nanood ba ng Attorney Woo? Uy, meron nga nanonood. Okay, good. Actually sinisimulan ko lang, nagpapahinga lang konti yung utak ko. So, nasimulan ko, 'di ba pag sinabi may pinag-usapan, object agad. Objection, hearsay, yan. So, hindi puwedeng usapang marites. Okay, you have to be skeptic. You have to research. You have to be curious. Totoo ba ito? Okay? Huwag mong tatanggapin yung sinabi at point blank. Kailangan patunayan ang katotohanan. Okay? So, yan. So, with that in mind, let's go for a 10 minutes break. Break muna tayo guys for 10 minutes. And wag muna kayo mag-log off. Off cam muna tayo. 10 minutes lang. Then we'll proceed with the discussion about matter. Okay? Sige, 10 minutes break guys. na ba yung ano, June na honorarium? Wala pa. Ha? Oo. Last time, yung June. Ah, kinain na naman. Wala ako natanggap ng June. Wala. Ano ba yun? Aanin ko lang yung nilakad kayo nila. Parang hindi ka na natin. Wala lang.
Bakit klase ka na ba dyan? Hindi ako makakonek sa ano eh. Sa, ano ko walang signal eh.
Saan?
Bubuksan ko sana yung
Saan
wifi.
pa?
Hindi kanya ako bubuksan.
Hindi nagpa-register ka na ba sa ITC?
Hindi pa.
Pa-register mo sa ITC.
Mga re-research mo ba yung UMAC website yung complete ano details ng magpapit? Para makita ko lang yung title niya.
Ano lang, Dr. Pahe.
Amelia.
Amelia Pahe. Teka lang. Yun na.
Picture ko na lang.
Hindi, hindi. Picture ang control. Amelia Pahe.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Nasa Thailand ngayon yun. Kasama yung Dr. Manny.
Alam mo naman yun, lagi ko pa kaya mo.
Kasi sabi ko, magsasabi na sana ako for final defense. Sabi niya, nasa Thailand ako. Ay, patay ka bata. Gaya, tawag ka. Mag-enroll siya? Mag-a-apply ba siya?
Meron ko sa akin sa PLR na Philipinology.
Ah, sayang din yun. Biochem. Malakas naman.
Okay pala dito pag sinasabi. Ilang gadget ba?
Dalawa.
Dalawa lang.
Oo. Oh. Kaya ang ginagawa ko, isa lang naka-register. Ito hindi. May sarili siyang linya. Ha?
3 hours.
Oo. Dapat to laboratory, kaya lang kasi hindi pa kami nursing, hindi pa kami nag-lecture nung Monday dahil holiday eh. Di ngayon ko siya, tapos bukas kami mag-lab. Sa bahay lang naman nila gagawin yun eh. Sige. Balik na ako. Hindi, so sensya, maingay din ako mag-discuss eh.